Hi guys, OCA here. As you may well know, getting the bass right is the single most important and usually the hardest part of any room correction. In this hopefully short tutorial, I'll explain an optimal method for combining all the subwoofers in your room into one perfectly optimized subwoofer by using Room EQ Wizard. The method is brand new, as REW didn't have some of the functions we'll be using up until recently. First, a quick guidance on the measurement stage. Place your microphone at the central listening position at exactly ear level. Since we are dealing with low frequencies, I suggest using a calibrated microphone, especially if you're planning to create your own EQ filters. But if it's only time aligning your subs you're after, then even an uncalibrated Audyssey microphone will suffice. As a matter of fact, since it's analog, it's better in timing than any USB microphone you can get. First, measure each sub separately. When you finish, take one measurement with all the subwoofers together. You can end the measurement stage here, especially if it's a single seat setup and you will not be using too much, but you will a little. If you're a regular to this channel, you will recall that I used to advise single microphone position measurements, but the new REW is capable of doing time alignment with cross correlation, and since it's the right way of time aligning measurements at different positions, I now prefer multiple point measurements. It's not only about base uniformity around the LP, but also important to eliminate very location specific dips and peaks and rather deal with the fundamental problems in the room. Move your microphone to another position around position 1. Again at ear level. Measure each sub separately again. Don't measure all subwoofers together this time. Then move your microphone in the opposite direction against the first measurement point and remeasure each sub again. You can repeat this as many times as you wish. Since we are using REW, there is no limit to how many measurements you can take and how far apart they can be from each other. It really depends on the home theater setup and how wide you want your bass uniformity. If you're a couple sitting on the same sofa watching movies together, for example, 3-4 measurements about 25 centimeters apart from each other would suffice. If it's a pro cinema setup with multiple rows of seats, you could measure for every single seat position. As I said, you're free. A microphone stand is useful to keep the microphone at ear level when moving to different measurement points and will make life easier, but it's not compulsory. So now let's open REW and start measuring. By the way, this is an early access version of REW, not available for everyone yet. It is visually different, a lot better in terms of appearance. Also, doing some adjustments are easier, especially in the EQ filters window. But functionally it's the same. And even the older versions now available in AV Nirvana website have cross-correlation time alignment, which is what we need. In terms of preferences, I use ASIO drivers, but you can also use Java Wasabi drivers now, which is a recent addition as well, which can map channels like this. This Java is not capable of doing that. Obviously, when I change to Java, it's asking me for another calibration file. Anyways, let's keep it in ASIO and ASIO for all. This is a free tool you can download. Channel 4 is for subwoofer, my gimmick microphone, and timing reference, although it's not necessary with this video. Let's choose center channel for it. Use subwoofer test signal to set levels. Let's check levels here. Sounds okay. Calibration files, nothing to change here. Okay, if for your microphone calibration, you have to upload the 90-degree version because the microphone should be pointing upwards during all the measurements. It's important because when you change the place of the microphone, you can't keep it pointing forward. But you can always keep it pointing up. And nothing to change here, nothing in house care analysis. Adjust clock with acoustic reference. This is customary to take this. It's really not necessary with this one. Equalizer. Okay, here this is important. We are embedding a house curve here. You can do this every time for every subwoofer, or you can just change it here at once at the beginning and then it will come automatically to every equalization window. These two frequencies should be the same. It doesn't matter which frequency. let's say both of them 200, ends at 10 Hertz, this is the lowest, and the slopes of both should be 0.7. This is a straight line, target curve, very optimized target curve. So do this change here and untick drop filters if gain is small. Target type subwoofer. So you don't have to do, you can do that in equalization window every time, but if you do it here at the beginning, then you don't have to. And here, maximum measurements, if you want to take measurements in, let's say, 20 different points, then you will need a higher number. When you change this during measurements, it will ask you to restart rev. If you don't want to do that, just increase it at the very beginning. 30 will usually be enough, but there have been times that 50 wasn't enough for me, so you've been warned. These are all the preferences you need to do, and then you can start doing the measurements. High definition audio 4, subwoofer channel, reference timing, reference output center channel, which is not necessary, as I said, but we are using it regardless. Reference level trim, more than 0, so we can see it in the impulse graph. 1 is enough. Okay, length. I use the shortest length possible this time, because especially if you're using a USB microphone, there will be timing issues. Although John fixed a lot of them by adding some clock PPM recently, but still, the shorter, the less time error with USB microphones. So you have to go for the shortest one, because this is for time alignment more than precision in equalization. But you can just as well use longer ones with Audyssey microphone, especially. You can go as long as you want. Will be much higher resolution, and the longer it is, the cleaner is the measurement. You suppress the noise with the longer the length of the measurement. So start. Sorry, we have to mute. I have 2 subwoofers now. I'm going to be measuring and aligning, and I mute subwoofer 2. So when I send a signal to the subwoofer channel, only subwoofer 1 will be active. So I just did that. Now I'm starting measurement. Done. So this is my subwoofer 1. Let's call this sub 1. And we are measuring from 0 to 200 Hertz. You could do this 250, but start from 0. Now I have to mute the first one and activate the second subwoofer. I'll just do that quickly. With minidsp, it's very easy, as easy as clicking a button, but there are many other ways. You can just actually turn off the subwoofer. So now we are measuring again the 4th channel, but this time is the second sub. Done, and call this sub 2. As you see, subwoofer 1 and subwoofer 2. If you go to time alignment, impulse tab, and change this from dBFS to percentage and fit data to window. So these are 2 subwoofer impulse responses. This is the first one, this is the second one. If you enlarge this, they seem to be aligned in time, but in fact, as you see, between the impulse peaks, there is 1.914 meters or 6 feet 3 inches difference, which is 5.58 milliseconds, give or take. So they are not time aligned, but this is not time aligning them to arrive at the listening position at the same time. It's meaningless. We now have to take a measurement with both subwoofers active. I'll go and do that. Now 2 subwoofers are active. Again, we are sending the measure sweep to the same channel, channel 4. Will be louder. not as loud as my cat. And this we call sub 1, 2. We have to measure these two subs together only at the first measurement point. Now I had to move the microphone, like in my case I moved it like 20 centimeters to the left, very easy with a mix stand, and then retake measurements for sub 1 and sub 2, not for sub 1, 2, just for the first two. And then move the microphone to the opposite side of the central listening position and take separate measurements for sub 1 and sub 2. As many times as you want. And I won't go through that in this video, but I have done it. So I will just upload them to show you how to align them afterwards. We open measurements. Yeah. So I used this lowercase o standing for 0 or origin, subwoofer 1 and 2, and 1, 2 together at the central listening position, position 0. And then I moved the microphone forward and I took two measurements with subwoofer 1 and 2. I called them 1F, 2F. And then I moved it to left. I called them 1L, 2L. And then I moved it to the right of the central listening position and I called them 1R and 2R. So I have a total of 4 different measurement points with two subwoofer measurements at each point. Now, we start by time aligning these measurements. First, the first subwoofer. So I unselect everything. Let me do it slowly so people might be having problems following. Then I select all the subwoofer 1 measurements. 1, 0, 1L, 1F, and 1R. So these are the 4 measurements of subwoofer 1. No need to see very low frequencies. As you can see, they, even with 20 centimeters, they vary massively, especially in this region. You know, if you could take only one measurement, you could just as well think it's a huge dip here and try to correct for it. But in fact, just 20 centimeters away, it's not a dip, it's flat, even a kind of a peak. So you understand that this is a very local problem you don't really have to deal with. Another area like this is here. But this peak is, for example, very real because it's everywhere. This peak is real. This peak is real. So this is the advantage of taking multiple measurements. However, because the microphone was at different positions compared to the subwoofer, how are we gonna time align them? So for perfect time alignment, let's go to overlays again and select subwoofer 1, just like we did in the AudioSpL window. 1F, 1L, and 1 right. 1, 0 is our central listening position. So this one highlighted now, the one in red, is the one that should not be moving. This has to stay fixed. The other measurements, these measurements, should be moving and be aligned with this measurement. And to not move it and move the others relative to it, we have to just remember where it is. For example, the peak of the red is here. The first peak is at 15 milliseconds exactly. It's not gonna move. The way to keep it fixed is select it here. Oh no, the one you select, whichever one you select, will be the reference measurement. And then you go to controls and select all the others that you want to align to it. Here they are already selected, all the subwoofer 1 measurements. And 1, 0 is selected here, and every other one is ticked here. That belongs to subwoofer 1. You're in AudioSpL tab, and you click cross correlation align. To see its effect, before and after we do it, I have to open both windows to the same screen. Hopefully it is still readable. Now look, the red one is the one we don't want to move, which the peak was here. And cross correlation align. See, they all moved. You can press maybe some more times, but the red didn't move at all, and all the others moved relative to it, and now they are perfectly time aligned. No matter where you took these measurements, cross correlation align never takes it wrong, because it cross correlates the whole impulse response through the whole frequency range, and it moves it to the point where the correlation is the highest at every point with the other measurement. Because I moved just a little, the effect, the move here you saw was quite little, but if you take measurements far apart from each other, you will see that there will be larger moves here, but the reference measurement will not move, which you select here. So now we do the same. Before we do that, now they are time aligned perfectly, and they are all ticked already, so you don't have to select, unselect here, anything else. Just do a vector average. So this is your actual response of the first subwoofer. Let's call this sub 1. Okay. Now we do the same thing for the second subwoofer. Unselect all. Select every subwoofer with 2. Right, left, front, and origin. Are there 4 of them? Yes. Keep 2O selected so that it stays as the reference, and then cross correlate. You didn't see any effect here, it happened here. We have to clear selections, and these are all the 2's together. Now they are aligned, and this one stayed where it was. And also now, when they are all selected, vector average. And this is our subwoofer 2. So we cross align, cross correlate, align, and then take a vector average. Now we have the real measurements that we will use for our subwoofer 1 and subwoofer 2. Okay, they are not time aligned between each other. They are just an average alignment of every measurement you did for each of them. And you don't time align them. Just time aligning them and making sure that the sound arrives from both of them to the listening position at the same time is not optimal in subwoofer time alignment. I'll show you why. Now we have these 2 measurements. We go to alignment tool. Again on all SPL tab. Alignment tool automatically opens a phase graph underneath. You don't have to see that, although it's quite useful at times. Let's see that. Okay, here you have to select which 2 measurements you want to align. We want to align sub 1, which is the average of all the subwoofer 1 measurements, and with sub 2, which is the average of all subwoofer 2 measurements. At the moment, the gain and delay of each measurement is 0. You can always reset them back to 0. And the black line here, the red line is subwoofer 2. The blue line is subwoofer 1. And the black line is the sum of these 2 subwoofers, which is your actual frequency response, if you play them the way they are right now. So, how do we optimize this? Let's see the top of the... Interestingly, it doesn't cover that area. For example, if you just invert the polarity of one sub, what happens? Let's look. See, it's much flatter, in fact. But this is not usually the optimal. But it's, if you're not going to do any equalization whatsoever, then just inverting one of the subs, either one is the same, doesn't matter. If you invert both, the result is the same as the original. But inverting one of the subs gives you a smoother response. It's about which part of the frequency range you are interested in. If you're going to be using this in a hi-fi system, you're interested up to 80 Hertz at most. You don't want to localize your subwoofer bass. So if it's a home theater setup and you have very small satellites, then you have to optimize everything until 120. In my case, I don't like crossing over above 80, even in home theater system, because above 80 Hertz, human ear can localize the bass. So ceiling sound, when there is a bass that has to come from the ceiling, but if it's too loud for the ceiling speaker, if it goes to the subwoofer on the floor, it doesn't really sound like it's coming from the ceiling, and you lose the Atmos effect. So I push my speakers to produce frequencies above 80 Hertz. Anyway, invert polarity is not the optimal way. It is one of the ways, but we can optimize a lot better. Now, if you play with this delay, you can manually enter here the number in milliseconds. You can use the keyboard, not the keyboard keys, but if you come onto this circle and then use the keyboard keys, yeah, you can change them by keyboard. See, you are changing the phase and everything, and you can also move this with your mouse and how massively the frequency response is changing. Subwoofers are the same. So the time alignment of the subwoofers is related to flattening the frequency response, overall average frequency response of the subwoofers. It's not about making sure they reach our ears at the same time from both subwoofers. When they reach at the same time, this is going to be the bass you'll be hearing. There will be a huge dip here at 77 Hertz. There will be another dip here at 91, and there will be a peak here at 63.6. So the idea is to minimize the difference between the peaks and dips. Like here we have 39 decibels of difference between a peak and a dip, and this is between 60 and 80 Hertz, which is a very, very useful bass range. So how do we fix for that? We can play with this and visually decide which is the best. Like, for example, somewhere here it looks like quite okay, right? And call it a day. So we just add 9.28 milliseconds of delay, which is 3.18 meters of difference. So even though your subwoofers are maybe at similar distance to the listening position, you just push the subwoofer digitally 3 meters away, one of the subwoofers. Only then, at the listening point, you will have a flatter response, a smooth bass. A bass like this with no peaks and dips will really bring out the system. Every other frequency will sound much better when they are not eaten by the bass peaks. So there is even a program that optimizes this, but it doesn't optimize that well, but it's a solution, MSO, multi-subwoofer optimizer or something like that. So I reset it. Now the technique is, depending on the range you want to use, I'm not interested above 80. Otherwise, this dip would be bothering me here. So if you're going to be using this for home theater, maybe this dip is lower. So you can use this one. But up to 80, the deepest dip is here, right? I just click the tip of it and align phase slopes at cursor. See? So automatically align the phases of two speakers in such a way that the slopes are the same at this frequency here, 77.4. And obviously made it a bit smoother. Now there is another dip here, the deepest dip. So I select that and again align phase slopes at cursor. See, now it's even smoother. So we are getting rid of the dips by asking REW to align the slopes of phase at that point. When the phases are aligned, the dip automatically just decreases. So you can keep doing that as much as you want, but at some point you will start hurting it rather than being useful. So now this seems to be the next deepest dip, and align slopes at cursor. Yeah, even better. And now this is the deepest dip. Align phase slope at cursor. Now you ruined it. So reset all and start again. Align phase slopes at cursor. Select the deepest dip. Align first slopes at cursor. And again, select the deepest dip. Align phase slope at cursor. This is where you leave it. Now you have a flat response and you got rid of the dips as much as mathematically possible. Trust me. Once you have that, you check the delay is minus 5.86 milliseconds to subwoofer 2, which is around 2 meters. So pushing subwoofer 2 meters away, no, bringing forward actually, because we are applying negative, it results in the best overall frequency response. When you combine these subwoofers with this alignment, you will have the perfect optimal one subwoofer in the room. Then this subwoofer you can time align with the other speakers. That time alignment is about sound waves arriving to the listening position at the same time, but not when you're aligning subwoofers with each other. With each other, you have to check the phase and get rid of the dips. This must be the priority. This is where everybody gets it wrong. Done. This is your subwoofers aligned. Now, once you have them aligned, you can dial this into your AVR or mini DSP or anything. I just create an aligned copy of subwoofer 2 and an aligned sum. We are done with alignment. Now untick everything. So we have now subwoofer 1 unchanged. We have subwoofer 2 aligned. And you can take the vector average of these two, or you can just use the aligned sum. As you can see, aligned sum and vector average are exactly the same. Aligned sum gives a better result because when you vector average two speakers, the volume will increase by 6 decibels, and aligned sum is doing that. Vector average doesn't care about that, but they are the same response. Doesn't matter. The volume level has no importance for equalization. So we can use either one of them for equalizing, but let's use aligned. When aligned sum is selected, we go to EQ tab. This is where REW got visually a lot better. We can close the waterfall grab. Also a new row property, there is now waterfall, impulse, phase, group delay, and pole 0 grabs under the EQ tab. Quite useful when the time comes. So pick your equalizer. I will pick my mini DSP, very old version, 2x4 balanced. I bought that years ago. I think it was the first mini DSP, so it's only 48 kilohertz, and I have only 5 equalization filters available, but you can use any one. Generic will give you the bands and the cues and the in decibels the variations of the frequency, so you can enter that to the subwoofer zone equalizer and what have you. Now the challenge is fitting the target curve and the response. This is our perfectly aligned subwoofer response. As you see, it's already kind of flat. I mean, the differences and the frequency range that I'm interested up to 80 is hardly 8 dB now, and this dip is inaudible because it's too narrow. So if you ignore that, the difference is like 4 dB. This is before equalization. Now calculate target level from response. Doesn't mean much at this stage with subwoofers. It's not as effective as it is with the speakers. You have to help it get effective. First, you have to match this target curve, add room curve first. See what the room cure does. We changed in preferences the 0.7 slope and the same frequencies starting at 10. It just adds a little slope here. Okay, if this was like that, this is what room cure does. Look, from a flat, it changes it to that. If you go all the way to, for example, 20,000, this is the ideal target curve, which we are doing. This is the low frequency part of this curve. But once you can keep it even like that and equalize for that and determine the target level yourself, like maybe here or maybe here, and you're okay with some dips. But it's quite controversial to select the target level, target pressure level. So it's better to get Röv to calculate it automatically. For that, we will spend some time on matching these speakers. Bass management cutoff 80. It's good for me, in fact, 80, but that's not, my subwoofers are cutting off somewhere else. Obviously, it never matches here. The slope, roll-off slope is much, yeah, something like that, as you see. And it doesn't start at 80, it starts something like that, 100, see? And now for the lower bass, doesn't start. It can only start sounding, look, the slope is not as much as the reality, so you increase it from 24 to 30. 30 is not enough. 36, 42, yeah, 42 seems fine, maybe 48 even, yeah. But now, this is not where the drop starts. The drop starts even higher, somewhere like here. So now when you click calculate target level from response, as you see, it moved a little bit. The better you can resemble your subwoofer with the target curve, the better Röv will get in calculating target level. This is important for equalization. You're free to use any level you want, like you can do this, or you can do this and just cut off every peak completely, but it will sound the best when Röv takes the target level itself, from my experience. So this is a match. You can generate a measurement from target shape, which here we'll show it. Let's see. Now we have a target curve here for our subwoofer. This is what we're going to be matching. Anyway, let's go back to our EQ. Now once you have the target curve, you go to filter tasks, and we want to equalize from here 32 till here, maybe 108. Individual max boost, flatness target 1, individual max boost 6, overall max boost 6, Vary maximum Q above 200, LO narrow filters. These are things you should never do with normal speakers, but with subwoofers it's okay. Match response to target. It's warning us that the level, because of these frequencies here which are inaudible, and the subwoofer and the amplifier has no idea what to respond here, so, and the target, automatic target calculation is taking care of all these to average. It's giving these little errors. Look, this is the new EQ filters window of REW. This is new. It's much easier to change and play with frequencies, and visually a bit easier to understand. So because of my minidsp, it comes with only 6. So I just click match response to target, continue, assigning filters, and voila. I don't like seeing filters, but I want to see the effect of the filters. Look, from this blue line on the top, by just applying, because it's an early access version, it's a bit buggy, but numbers should be there. Interesting. Come on, numbers. Here is the predicted after the EQ. So by just applying 6 equalization bands at 35 Hz minus 6 dB with 12 bandwidth, at 47.80 Hz minus 7-ish dB at 2 bandwidth, just 6 equalization points brought our overall subwoofer response to near perfection, like 3-4 dB maximum variation in the ideal target curve. So you can generate measurement from predicted. There it will go on the OLSPL screen. And also you can save filter coefficients to file, give them a name, sub12 correction, or EQ filters, let's say. And let's save it on desktop. Done. And I can export these to minidsp directly. You can export to all of these equalizers, whichever you're using, or you can manually adjust your subwoofers with these equalization points. The idea is not about equalizing, it's about time aligning them properly. So once you have those, when you apply these equalization filters to your subwoofer, you can even use your AVR if it's capable of equalizing subwoofer. This is what you're going to be getting. No, sorry, this is the align sum, EQ align sum. Yeah, this is what you're going to be getting. So, to compare, you remember you had measured your subwoofers together at the original listening position, this one, and now at the original listening position, this is what you'll be getting. In the range I'm interested, from 30 to, let's say, 100, I'm interested until 80, and so this was the original response on my subwoofers together, and now this is what it's going to be after just 5 bands of equalization. This is a very smooth bass response. You cannot get to that level with any speaker, no matter how large. It's multiple subwoofers which makes that possible, because we can time align them between each other. And that's it, actually. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.